come on here and talk to me for a few minutes, and I mean literally a few minutes. I am beat. So I had a pretty decent day today. I'm not going to say it wasn't bad. Actually, my day started out pretty good. I went to a national night out tonight. When I hit up three parties, so that was pretty good for me because I don't want you to think you're stuck there. When I do ask random questions, it can literally be any subject, any topic. But I was thinking about a question that's to someone at work earlier. We were talking about what position can an employee take if they are in a hostile work environment and the dynamic is between them and their supervisor. And I will say, for me, just based on my personal experience, if I could go back and redo like the years I was in a toxic work environment, I'm one of those people who you talk about who's gonna cry aloud and spare not. That workplace be picked apart, like instead of the people teaming individually, and so that's why I think a lot of people when they're in toxic work environments, one of the main mistakes they make is they're afraid to team up and move as a group. And I get there is a risk in sticking your neck out there because you don't know if you're going to be um, thrown out, thrown under the bus by the coworkers. Because a lot of times when it's time to speak up, everybody agrees to go do it. It's normally only one person who's doing all of the talking. Me, I never had a problem with being that person, so I was always the one leading the charge. However, I would say I don't regret being the person to do that, and I don't think it's wrong to fight, right? I just think that I'm more of a reactionary person, and so I found myself constantly in reaction mode. And even now, like when I think about navigating workspaces and stuff, I'm the type of person, I just, like most people, I think go to work, you want to just be left alone. And so I don't go in with a grand strategy of thinking how I'm going to manage and move people or how I'm going to manipulate and deceive people or try to do the whole office politics thing. And there, I mean, I know there are people who they are always talking about the 48 laws of power and this is what they're going to do in the workspace. And if that's how you move, I do think to Robert Greene's point when he's talking about just observing how people process the 48 laws of power, that people who do that, most of the time they end up being isolated and alone because you're going to end up at point people you're going to alienate enough people where you're just going to be an asshole and nobody's going to deal with you. We live in a world where you are not an island and you need to make alliances. That's just facts. You always got to remember who has the upper hand. Me, I am like just straight on. I'm very direct anyway. And so it was just like, I was a bull and you had the red cape, right? I'm going full steam ahead. When I say I would be more strategic, not that I would have been manipulating or trying to move people around like I'm Littlefinger and this is Game of Thrones. However, I would have watched more. I would have paid attention to how they were moving and who they targeted and how they targeted. Sometimes we're not as observant as we think we are. We're not paying enough attention to the details around us. So I would just say that if you're going to try to figure out how to navigate a hostile work environment where it's you versus your employer, you have to be honest about the dynamic that you found yourself in. And that is, first of all, accepting reality that you're already at a disadvantage. They had definitely low power, and most employers are going to side into this, an unequal power dynamic, and the HR is always going to side with the supervisor because to admit that the supervisor wrong is admitting to liability. So they're going to avoid that at all costs, even if they have to just kind of downplay it and move things around and sometimes move supervisors around. They'll do that before they're wrong. And that's kind of what happened in that situation. One of the supervisors retired early. So those are just a couple things I would think of. I think we get so angry. Oh, I can speak for myself. I definitely am the type of person who was getting angry, and I get so angry that I just instantly attack. instead of waiting and biding my time. So I would definitely say that would be my point, my key point that I would make to somebody that's fighting a war in an unequal power balance. So when the power is not in your favor, you definitely need to make alliances. But here's the reality of it: more than likely, you're going to be, if you get your coworkers to actually do something, it's going to be like pulling teeth. So what I would do is I would just work on my exit strategy, get what I need, and get out. Now, if you're in a position where you can't move or you don't want to move because you're comfortable, then you're going to have to think of a different way to process this situation and pick and choose your battles better, more carefully. So that's all I got. So that was just my thoughts. I will, let's see if you guys, do you guys have any questions or comments? Anything you want to talk about before I get out of here? I think the next show I will try to do this weekend, and we'll continue the leadership series. Of course, we didn't do a Sabbath show because we were, that we did the Day of Atonement, but we will be right back on the Sabbath doing the the Hebrew Woman show. So definitely join us over there. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Have a good night. Oh, before I get out of here, y'all know I gotta see. I got a couple of people here that hi Felicia, hi Avi. I see a couple people here that I need to delete before I go because I am just like with my channel, just like I'm saying with the workplace. I pick and choose. I'm picking and choosing my battles better. I would say for people doing content, don't argue with your audience. I think that is one of the mistakes that I learned the hard way early on with doing content creation. You'll see a lot of content creators arguing with their audiences. That always works against you because you end up having clicks form against you. And so rather go than deal with the headache of all that nonsense, just delete people who come to your channel that's respectful. Just politely delete them. Hi, Ride Star. And anyway, good night, y'all. I'm tired.